Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من علم لا ينفع ومن قلب لا يخشع ومن نفس لا تشبع ومن دعوة لا يستجاب لها. آمين يا رب العالمين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Inshallah, we'll continue our discussion on Umayyad Caliphate. As I mentioned earlier, this is a very important era of Muslim history because there are a lot of controversies, there are a lot of conflicts, and if we do not understand this era right after the time of Khulafa Rashidun, then it becomes very difficult to understand the rest of the Islamic history till today. So we have already entered to Umayyad Caliphate last time, and we talked about Amir Muawiyah in the previous session, and then we also talked about some other Khulafa during that time. Now, even though we call it Umayyad Caliphate, but according to some scholars, they call it Umayyad Dynasty or Umayyad Empire because they do not consider it as a Khilafa or as a Caliphate. But however, we will continue with whatever different terms have been used for this. So inshallah, we'll go ahead and get started. If you remember, I had shared with you a chart of the families of Umayyah family, which is in gold color right here. The Hashim family, which is in green. And so these are the two families that we will see that Umayyad Caliphate came, everyone pretty much came from this family. So Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was from Hashim, Banu Hashim, but then Abu Bakr Siddiq and the rest of the Khulafa, they came from different tribes. And then Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu, right here, he was from Umayyad family. And then Hazrat Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he was from Hashim family. So now we are entering into an era where Muawiyah, Hazrat Amir Muawiyah, who was son of Abu Sufyan. So if you look at the family tree, so Umayyah, this is the family of Umayyah. It comes down from Harb to Abu Sufyan and to Muawiyah radiallahu ta'ala anhu. So we have already studied Muawiyah bin Abu Sufyan, and then we studied Yazid bin Muawiyah. Now we will so Yazid bin Muawiyah, and then we will say that Muawiyah bin Yazid because they had names that are always used multiple times in the family. So this is a little closer look. So we have studied who so far? Hazrat Muawiyah, who started the Umayyad Caliphate, then his son Yazid, and whatever happened in this era. We talked about Karbala and all those events, Harra, and then Muawiyah too. So today we'll talk about Muawiyah too, and then we will see that the Khilafa moved from this particular family to Marwan's family, even though they're both from Umayyad family. But Muawiyah's cousin Marwan, he was the one who took the Khilafah from Muawiyah too, and then we will see that it continues as it is mentioned in this chart. So this is another chart that I've shared with you. This is just a sequence of all the Khulafa or the kings or the administrators who came during the Umayyad Caliphate, and we will study one by one just so that we know that how things changed from Khilafah to Umayyad dynasty. So this is a chart that I shared with you, and in red color you will see that in the Umayyad Caliphate, this is how this is the order in which all these caliphs came. So Muawiyah radiallahu ta'ala was the first one, and then his son Yazid, then his son Muawiyah three, and then we will see four, five, six, and so on. And I'll keep sharing this particular slide so that you will understand the sequence. So the Umayyad dynasty, as we know, centralized Islamic authority and made Damascus, Syria its capital. We have already talked about it. There were a lot of expansions during this empire. The territories expanded to west till Spain and to east till India. This is all what happened during Umayyad dynasty. They allowed Islam to grow in these areas. They allowed Arabic language, and they were very adamant about promoting the Arabic language, which is the language of Quran, to all those areas. So the Umayyad dynasty was divided between two families, the Sufyanids and the Marwanids, as I just showed you in the chart. So this is, as you can see, this is under the this is the expansion that was done in Umayyad Empire. So Arabian Peninsula, Iraq, Syria, Palestine, Egypt, north part of North Africa, Libya, and then the rest of the area, which is mentioned in gold color, this was conquered during the Umayyad Empire. And then you can also see in Central Asia, they reached up to India and the south of Russia, you can say, and the entire Iran was conquered and so on. So this is what we are going to be studying in this session. Okay, and we have already talked about Yazid, Hazrat Amir Muawiyah and Yazid, and then we talked about how things happened when Hazrat Amir Muawiyah passed away. Then there was a caliphate that was still being decided, but Amir Muawiyah had already decided about Yazid, so he became the Khalifa, and then uh, Yazid's son's name was also Muawiyah. So don't mix these two names. So this is Muawiyah bin Yazid. The previous Muawiyah was bin Abu Sufyan. So this is Muawiyah bin Yazid. So this is basically the family is Muawiyah bin Yazid bin Muawiyah bin Abu Sufyan. So he only ruled for 7 months. And here it is. This is from 683 to 84. So he was a very pious person. He acknowledged that his family had done great wrong to people because during the time of Yazid, there were a lot of aggression and oppression was done on Muslims. He locked himself in a room because he did not want to become Khalifa, but just because that family wanted someone to rule within their family. So he locked himself in the room, and then one day he just ran away. He was the last caliph from Abu Sufyan's family. So there was a vacuum, and this point Abdullah bin Zubair temporarily became the caliph of Muslims in Mecca and Medina. Remember, the Sufyanids or the Muawiyah bin Yazid was in Syria, in Damascus. But Abdullah bin Zubair, who had not accepted the Tamir Muawiyah's succession, or he did not want to accept the Khilafah of Yazid, so he still stayed away from it. But he became caliph. He announced that, or people announced that he was a caliph temporarily, but he stayed in Hijaz. Hijaz is Makkah and Medina. The Umayyad family wanted to keep the caliphate within their family, so they convinced Marwan bin Hakam bin Abdul As ibn Umayyad to take the caliphate. Then when Marwan family took charge of Umayyad Caliphate. And now we are going to talk about Khilafat Marwan. Here it is. So see this family, they wanted to keep it within Abu Sufyan's family, but it did not happen because he ran away and there was no one after him to take charge. So they still wanted the Khilafah to stay within Umayyah family. So they requested Marwan to take charge and then to make sure that the Khilafah continues in Umayyad family. So Marwan had several sons. One of them was Abdul Malik. So Marwan bin Hakam, uh, he ruled only 10 months, for only 10 months. He had three sons, Abdul Malik, Abdul Aziz, and Muhammad. And he was Usman radiallahu ta'ala anhu's cousin. He served in wars with Romans, so he was very close to Usman radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and then other people like Amir Muawiyah and other Sahaba. He served as Usman radiallahu ta'ala anhu's governor in western Iran, in Fars. He also served as a governor of Medina during Muawiyah rule, Muawiyah radiallahu ta'ala anhu's rule and caliphate. He worked as a defense minister for Muawiyah anhu's rule in Hijaz and was expelled after Yazid's death. Then he moved to Syria. So if you can see that there is a history of Marwan bin al-Hakam. He designated his sons Abdul Malik and Abdul Aziz as his successor during his life. So then Marwan became caliph by force, and even though Khalid bin Yazid who was supposed to succeed him, but he kept the caliphate in his family. So Khalid bin Yazid, if you remember, that he was the son of Yazid, but people did not want to give him the caliphate. So Marwan bin Hakam was forced to accept it, but he only took it for like 10 months, and then he appointed his son Abdul Malik, and then Abdul Aziz. But his wife, who was Yazid's widow, now make sure you understand the relationship. So his wife, who was Yazid's widow, killed him because he took caliphate away from her son. So now you understand that why, even though Marwan bin Hakam did not want to take charge, but he did for the sake of Muslim Ummah and for the sake of Umayyad dynasty, and he only ruled uh, for 10 months, and then the Khilafat, uh, Abdul Malik bin Marwan came, and Abdul Malik bin Marwan. Uh, so Marwan, this is still Marwan bin Hakam. So yeah. Now this is Abdul Malik bin Marwan. Abdul Malik bin Marwan. So in Marwan's family, this is the second Khalifa, but overall in Umayyad family, he was the fifth one. Now he ruled for some time. He ruled for 20 years, and a lot of things happened during his time. For example, Dome of the Rock was built during his time. Dome of the Rock is the dome that you see in Palestine, that a lot of people go and pray in that masjid. Makkah and Medina had Abdullah bin Zubair's rule, so he wanted to develop a spiritual center in Palestine. What that means, that Abdullah bin Zubair was already a great Sahabi, and everyone was looking up to him. And because they had not accepted Abdul Malik bin Marwan as a Khalifa, so he wanted to create a spiritual center in Palestine, which was the first Qibla of Muslims. So it still had its own, it was still sacred to a lot of Muslims. During his time, Hajjaj bin Yusuf attacked Makkah and killed Abdullah ibn Zubayr. We will study a little bit about Hajjaj bin Yusuf. In 689, he had controversial treaty between Muslims and Byzantines. So, as you know, that previously Byzantines had been checked by all the Muslim rulers to make sure that they do not come within Muslim territories. Now let's talk a little bit about Hajjaj bin Yusuf. You must have all heard about Hajjaj bin Yusuf. He was considered to be a very tyrant leader, but he was also responsible for a lot of progress that was made during that time. So Hajjaj bin Yusuf was born in Ta'if in Saudi Arabia in 6661 AD and died in 714 AD. He was Umayyads governor of Iraq and Hijaz. Iraq was one of the most important thing after Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, because the Iraq had Kufa and Basra, plus Hijaz, so Makkah and Medina was also under him. So he governed both of these states, or both of these. At that time, these were states, but apparently now they're two different countries. He started working for Umayyad government during this era. He was most prominent and famous governor of Umayyad Caliphate because he was very staunch supporter of Umayyad dynasty, and we will see that how he worked very hard and he fought against those who were against Umayyad Caliphate. He was very harsh, strict, ruthless, but very organized and intelligent, and that's why he was able to make some progress. He fought during Battle of Harra. Battle of Harra is the battle that happened after Karbala, when Yazid sent his forces to Medina to ask everyone to accept Yazid's Khilafah or they would be killed. And last session we mentioned about both of these events. Hajjaj got promoted as head of police security forces, then as a governor of Hijaz. So he had pretty much very good experience with enforcing rules and policies in that area. He also had unified Iraq because he brought Basra, Kufa, and the rest of the Iraq areas to come and unite, and some parts of even Eastern Caliphate under his control. So Eastern Caliphate was basically within the like Iran and within the Central Asia part of that. It was also under his rule. He made several key reforms during his time. He introduced new design of currency, dirhams in Islamic way. There was a different currency, but he's the one who started this in dirhams. He changed the language of official communication from Persian to Arabic because there was a great influence of Iran and the Central Asian people, and many of them spoke Persian. So the communication language was Persian before him. So he changed it to Arabic. So he's kind of bringing Arab language and Arab culture back to this area. He expelled non-Arab Muslims from Kufa and Basra. This is another act that he had done, and it had become very controversial. And he imposed jizya on them, which is only for non-Muslims. So jizya is a tax that is imposed to non-Muslims if they decide to live within Muslim territories, and it is not for any Muslims. But he imposed taxes on Muslims who were non-Arabs. So this also create animosity between Ajam and Arab, between people of who were non-Arab descents and people from Arab descent. So this was also something, but they were very powerful so at that time he was very successful, but later on it became very controversial. He introduced uniform version of Quran with some changes about Umayyad Caliphs that became controversial. So again, he's trying to support Umayyad Caliphate to an extent where he was even not scared or not worried about changing some of the explanations of Quran. Many new canal digging projects were done in his governorship. He founded a he founded a city named Wasit to house Syrian army where loyal Umayyad dynasty army was situated. And we also will see that he also died there because he was very close to his army and he fought from pretty much anywhere and on any front that was against Umayyad family, Umayyad dynasty. He killed many Muslims and non-Muslims. Whoever raised voice against his governorship or Umayyad rule, he killed them. He was sent with 2,000 Syrians to attack Makkah and fight with Abdullah bin Zubair, and that is the time when I mentioned about the event of Harra. He sieged Kaaba when he was throwing stones on Abdullah bin Zubair. Abdullah bin Zubair's mother Asma bint Abu Bakr. Asma bint Abu Bakr. So Asma radiallahu ta'ala anha was daughter of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and Abdullah bin Zubair was son of Asma bint Abu Bakr. So he had a very sacred connection to Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and of course to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So anyway, these are all the details. Inshallah, you guys can go and read when you have some time, because this event was mentioned a little bit last time. Uh, so uh, he had conflicted with, so he was Umayyad used Hajjaj. Umayyad dynasty used Hajjaj, who is considered to be one of the most brutal ruler of Islamic history, and he was necessary evil for Umayyad and was very loyal to Umayyad empire. Necessary evil meaning that he was needed by Umayyad, even if they thought that he was very zalim, but still they wanted his help because he was very staunch supporter of Umayyad family. He had conflicted with Anas bin Malik, Umar bin Abdul Aziz, and Abdullah bin Zubair. He was in essence responsible for bringing Umayyad rule back. It is very complex to understand these individuals and their practices, but some point in time, inshallah, or in question answer sessions, we can go a little bit more in detail. Now, who was Abdullah bin Zubair? I just mentioned he was the first child born to Muhajirin in Medina. When Muslims migrated to Medina, he was the first child to be born. His father was Zubair bin Awam, who was also one of the Ashara Mubashira, those 10 people who were given the Bashara, glad tidings of Jannah, when they were praying behind Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and when the Qibla changed. His mother was Asma bint Abu Bakr. His both parents were very brave and faced extreme hostilities. He was extremely pious and well known for his concentration, khushu' in prayer. So he was very popular when he was praying. He just his khushu and khudu was so much so that he would not even feel like anything else existed in this world. So let's summarize the rule of Marwan. So the 14 years of civil war started before the death of Umayyad II and then continued up till towards the end of Abdul Malik, Marwan's rule. He strengthened the Umayyad rule and he was one of the muftis of Medina. He was known for his piety and scholarship, so he was a scholar. Then he became a real politician and became a brutal and hired Hajjaj to oppress all their opponents. He is also known as father of kings, as four of his sons became kings. He was also known as the second founder of Umayyad dynasty because Umayyad dynasty, after the death of Amir Muawiyah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, came under Yazid and then Muawiyah, his son. So it was almost going downfall. But Marwan bin Hakam, son Abdul Malik bin Marwan, kind of brought it back. After the civil war ended, he ruled over entire Muslim land, and then he started going in the surrounding lands to extend Muslim territories. At this point, they had their own currency and their own flag with its own national language. So this is another credit that goes to this government. This was the first time when Muslim Ummah had all this after Prophet Wasallam's era. So after this was the first time that they had pretty much ruling the entire Muslim Ummah. So it was the first Muslim civilization in history. So you can say that it was a first Muslim civilization in history after the death of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now comes Waleed bin Abdul Malik. So now Waleed, number 6 of Umayyad dynasty, his father was Abdul Malik, who we just studied. So he became the Khalifa. Now he ruled for 10 years. His father ruled for 20 years, but he ruled for 10 years, and he was born in 674 and died in 715. When he was young, he also took part of wars with Roman empires, and then he basically continued his father's expansion, Muslim territories expansion, and he kept building new monuments or new forts and things like that. So he kind of continued on the steps of his father, and he continued with the policies also that was made by his father. He was very much influenced by Hajjaj bin Yusuf. So Hajjaj bin Yusuf is now his elder. So his major achievements were conquest of North Africa, Spain, Sindh, and Central Asia. During this time when all these places were conquered. It was during his time that Muslims had most territorial gains. So remember we mentioned, I showed you the map of Umayyad Empire. So this is the time where the entire Umayyad Empire expansion, the maximum Umayyad Empire expansion was done during his time. Okay, so he built the Great Mosque of Damascus in Syria. It is still there, and it is a huge mosque. And there were a lot of prophecies about it, and we will talk about it later. One of the greatest architectural achievements of that time. He started several welfare programs for poor and needy. Uh, there was mostly peace and tranquility in this era. It was peak of Umayyad Caliphate. So basically, the building blocks were done by Abdul Malik bin Marwan, and then now his son, another 10 years. So Abdul Malik ruled for 20 years. Now he ruled for 10 years. But this is a time where he really, everything started shining within the Umayyad Empire. And people were happy. The society was not as poor because there were welfare programs for poor and needy, and so on. Walid instructed Umar bin Abdul Aziz. Now remember, Umar bin Abdul Aziz is also going to be a Khalifa during Umayyad Empire, but he will come after a couple of other Khulafa. So Walid Umar bin Abdul Aziz at that time, Umar bin Abdul Aziz was governor of Medina, so he instructed Umar bin Abdul Aziz to enlarge Masjid al-Nabawi because there was a need of expansion. There were a lot of people who were coming to Medina, and he wanted to make sure that they're all able to pray within the masjid. He also enlarged Prophet ﷺ Hujra, to accommodate graves of Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu and Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu by demolishing hujras of Prophet's wives. Now, this was also very controversial because if you have been to Medina, you know that where Prophet Hujra was, Prophet ﷺ was buried there. And when Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu died, he was also buried right beside Prophet ﷺ. Then when Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu died, he was buried beside Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And then there was a hujra for Prophet's wives, but this was not used as much, but it was used as a sacred place, so people did not want to demolish it. But he expanded the area, and he wanted to make sure that there's enough room for it. But it became very controversial, and a lot of people turned against him. He died in 715 AD in Damascus. He died 1 year after Hajjaj's death. So now Hajjaj bin Yusuf is dead, and then Al-Waleed ibn Abdul Malik also dies. Now, at this point, I would like to discuss three major things, and maybe those would be the last three items. But it is very, very important that we all understand these three expeditions that were done during Al-Walid. So Al-Walid, like I said, he was expanding territories and he wanted to expand further. So let's talk about who was Muhammad bin Qasim, because he was one of the generals that was sent to Sindh, Pakistan, or the Sindh, the subcontinent, to convey the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also to expand the Muslim territories. So Muhammad bin Qasim was born in 695 in Taif, Saudi Arabia, and he died in 715 in Iraq. He was nephew of Hajjaj bin Yusuf, remember that, and who was also originally from Taif. He had always been brave and courageous. In very early life, he became a great help and asset to his uncle, who was governor of Yemen. So he actually started fighting in Yemen for the sake of Muslim expansion, but he also worked under Hajjaj bin Yusuf, his uncle. Due to his extraordinary skills, he was made governor of Faras, Western Iran, by Hajjaj bin Yusuf. So remember where Muhammad bin Qasim is coming from. So the conquest of Muslims started in Sindh. If you, and we will talk a lot more about it, inshallah. But basically, when this Khilafah is within the Middle East, within the Iraq, Syria, but it had already expanded many different sites. So the first time Muslims entered as an army into subcontinent was that Al-Walid sent Muhammad bin Qasim to conquer Sindh. And this was done in 649 when Makran was attacked. Makran is also a place in Sindh. There was some trade route issues in Dibal, and Hindu pirates were threatening Muslims doing trade. This was all happening because we know according to traditions, there were other religions, there were other people, other kingdoms, mini kingdoms in that entire subcontinent area. But trade was very important for Umayyad Caliphate too. So when they heard there were some mishandling is being done. And then the report says, it is reported that there was also an incident when a Muslim woman was kidnapped while she was traveling with a caravan from Sri Lanka to Arabian Peninsula. So these were a couple of news that Umayyad Caliphate received. So Hajjaj bin Yusuf sent Muhammad bin Qasim to go and fight in Dibal and make sure that he protects other Muslims who had already been there for trades. So he conquered Sindh and part of Punjab region along the Indus River. So this is all in Pakistan. Today's Pakistan, if you keep in mind, then the Sindh and then the part of Punjab, and then he kept going up until Multan and then at the border of Kashmir. But we will see in the map. I think I do have a map to show it to you. And this was done along the Indus River thousands of years ago when the human civilization started in this era. It is reported that it started around the Indus River, which is today it exists. The entire Pakistan has the Indus River crossing it, and then it goes northwards. So the Umayyad Caliphate commander went there. Muhammad bin Qasim did a very good job of conquering the Sindh area. He took 6,000 Syrian cavalry, and then many other camels riders joined within the Sindh. And 712 AD, he captured Dibal and then fought with Raja Dahir. If you remember, he was the king of that area. He was Raja of that area who died in the battle, and Muhammad bin Qasim took control of Sindh. He conquered lands up till Multan in Gujarat, which is part of India. Part of it is in India. Then he was planning to head towards the kingdom of Kashmir, but that's when he was called back by Umayyad Caliph. Now remember this term. Remember when he was called back by Umayyad Caliph. This is one of the warrior, one of the generals that was called by Umayyad Caliph Al-Walid, and then he was killed. And we will explain a little bit later. So he established a system of peace where he did not interfere with non-Muslim population as long as they lived in peace. He was so generous, so peaceful, so good to people that even Hindu people who belong to Hindu religion, they started worshiping him. They started creating his statues And that's when the Umayyad Caliphate also felt like he's becoming even more powerful than the Caliph himself. So, so Hajjaj died in 714, and soon after Walid bin Abdul Malik died, and Walid's younger brother Suleiman came Caliph. That's when he called back Muhammad bin Qasim, and then he killed him. Now, this is the area where this is Dibal, this is Makran. This is where Muhammad bin Qasim entered through the sea, and then he went all the way to Multan and part of Gujarat. And then his plan was to keep going until the borders of Kashmir, but that's when he was called back. Now, let me turn our attention to another area. Now, during the same time, during Al-Waleed bin Abdul Malik, there was another general who was Tariq bin Ziyad. I'm pretty sure that you have all heard about his name. So during the Caliphate of Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik, the governor of North Africa was Musa bin Nusayr. North Africa meaning almost in Morocco. So mainly Morocco, and then which if you see there is a Strait of Gibraltar in the middle where the Mediterranean Sea connects with the Atlantic Ocean, and then you have Spain. And that's what, so Tariq bin Ziyad was the one who conquered Spain. So Musa appointed Tariq bin Ziyad governor of Tangier. Tangier is a northwestern city in Morocco, which is very close to the Mediterranean Sea. It is on the coast of Strait of Gibraltar. He sent Tariq bin Ziyad, who was Berber Umayyad commander. Berber were the people who were living in North Africa, especially in Morocco and the southwards. So these were very people who had very courageous people, and they were mostly fighting in wars. And of course, they were hired by by other armies to fight for them. So the Berber commander Tariq bin Ziyad was called by Musa bin Nusayr, and he made him commander to conquer this Spain because it was the wish was sent or the instructions were sent by Al-Walid bin Abdul Malik. He entered Spain in 711. Remember, Muhammad bin Qasim went to conquer Sindh, the subcontinent, in 712, and now just 1 year earlier, Tariq bin Ziyad is entering through Strait of Gibraltar to Spain to conquer it. And then now this is Strait of this is basically called Jabal al-Tariq because the Strait of Gibraltar, because that mountain area where they landed after they crossed the Strait of Gibraltar, that is called Jabal al-Tariq, the mountain of Tariq. Wali sent three commanders in different directions. So there was north, uh, east side, it was Muhammad bin Qasim. Western north area, Spain is the uh, Tariq bin Ziyad, and there was another Muslim commander, Qutayba bin Muslim. He was sent to Transoxiana. Transoxiana is basically these three, four countries were part of it: Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Kyrgyzstan. So these are now independent states, but there was a time when the USSR managed all these countries. But at that time, this area was called Transoxiana. This is all Central Asian countries. So now Al-Walid bin Abdul Malik also wanted to expand his empire towards the north, towards the Central Asia, basically. So he sent Qutayba bin Muslim there. So there were three people, Tariq bin Ziyad, Muhammad bin Qasim, and Qutayba bin Muslim. So, and this is the map where you can see this is Transoxiana, this entire area. Now, this is where Tariq bin Ziyad crossed. This is the Strait of Gibraltar. This is Morocco, and he crossed the Mediterranean Sea, and then reached to Gibraltar, which is in Spain, and then he continued his conquest throughout the Spain. And you will see this is a little better map. He conquered the entire Spain, and eventually even Portugal. This is current Portugal, but at that time this was all called Al-Andalus. Al-Andalus was named to here, and Tariq bin Ziyad actually even reached within France. So he was on his way to conquer probably entire Europe, because after France it was Germany and so on. But something happened again. As soon as Al-Walid died and Suleiman came, his brother came to power, he also called Qutayba bin Muslim back. I'm sorry, the Tariq bin Ziyad back. So this was another story. Now, Tariq bin Ziyad, these are the stories, inshallah, you can study whenever you have time, that how he conquered Spain and how he was able to reach till border of France. Now, Qutayba bin Muslim, he was sent to the Central Asia. During the Caliphate of Al-Walid, he wanted to spread Islam to Central Asia, West China, and Khorasan. So Qutayba bin Muslim, commander of Umayyad Caliphate, who became governor of Khorasan. Remember, Khorasan is part of Afghanistan and part of Iran today. This was the Khorasan. He was appointed by Hajjaj bin Yusuf to go and conquer this area in 704. He conquered most of the area called Transoxiana. He also conquered some areas of Western China. For little over 10 years, he stayed in these areas and established both diplomatic and organizational structures. So now, just going back, Muhammad bin Qasim goes to Sindh, and then he stayed there for several years. He established a government, very flourishing government. Everyone was happy. Qutayba bin Muslim was sent to Central Asia. He established a government, governed there for 10 years. Everything was good. Everything was in harmony. And then Tariq bin Ziyad conquered the entire Spain, crossed the borders of France. He's continuing. Spain had become a Muslim territory, and Islam really flourished there. So at this point in time in history, all these three places were about to be to go forward, and Muhammad bin Qasim would have conquered the entire subcontinent, including India and Burma and down the Sri Lanka. The Qutayba Muslim would have gone up to into Russia, into China, and the entire Asian countries would have been conquered. And Tariq bin Ziyad would have conquered the entire Europe, because he is knocking at the door of France and then Germany and all these other places. So this is the important, very important thing that you have to keep in mind. So so these three things happened during Al-Walid's rule. Now let's summarize Walid's rule. During his reign, he did not face any opposition from Muslims. He kept improving and expanding his territories. The expansion of Muslims' empire happened greatly in this time. He was the first ruler to establish salaries of scholars. At that time, scholars was like volunteers. They would teach Islam just from their hearts. But so he felt the need that scholars, they should spend all their time in teaching other people. So he, instead of working somewhere else to meet their ends meet, so but he's appointed them as workers, as scholars, and gave them salaries. These expansions happened mainly because he used four great army generals: Muhammad bin Qasim, Musa bin Nusayr, Tariq bin Ziyad, and Qutayba ibn Muslim. Okay, so he was the one who appointed Umar bin Abdul Aziz as governor of Medina, but later, with the request of Hajjaj, he removed him and sent him to Syria. These are important events, so I hope you will remember this, because these are very important facts of that time. Towards the end of his reign, there was a huge clash between him and his brother Sulaiman. Sulaiman, basically, the reason of the clash was that Sulaiman wanted to get the Khilafah before Walid, but because Walid was more capable and he was supported by more people, so he took the Khilafah. So Sulaiman had some kind of animosity against him. And his father wanted to appoint Suleiman, but Walid wanted to appoint his son. So this is what happened. So and we will see how this animosity among brothers brought disastrous discussions, decisions that probably changed the entire future of Muslim empire, because Suleiman was the one who brought all these people back, these warriors, these generals back, and killed them. So now we will, I think we are almost out of time. So inshallah, we will continue with Sulaiman bin Abdul Malik. Now again, he is brother of Al-Walid. Walid ruled for 10 years. Now Sulaiman comes, but Sulaiman wanted to be Khalifa right after Abdul Malik, after his father, but Walid became Khalifa, and then Walid also appointed his son as his crown prince, which Suleiman also did not like, but then he took over after the death of Walid. And then Allah alam, Allah knows best that whether it was his revenge, his animosity, or there were other reasons, but we will study that how he basically changed the entire Muslim history, and we will see that what happens afterwards. So inshallah, we will study Suleiman Ibn Abdul Malik next week. And it is also a very important era, so I hope you will all, inshallah, attend. We will take question and answers after this. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.